What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video and another week of Loki, the season finale. Episode that didn't really feel all that final for me. I gotta say, I'm pretty surprised. I instantly went to my phone and started thinking to myself, is this really the finale? I started looking around to see if people were saying that maybe there was going to be another episode, and it seems like this is indeed the finale. The episode was titled For All Time, Always, and yeah, as usual, we'll be getting into spoilers. Won't be a full spoiler breakdown of everything that happened, but, you know, basic gist of the main plot points, because, yeah, overall, man, I gotta tell you right out of the gate that I'm kind of torn on how I feel about this episode. Like all the episodes before, it's very well acted. It's got great special effects, great cinematography. You know, again, the performances are great. The look, the feel, the vibe of the show is great. Kate Herron, I believe, is who directed the show, and I think overall she did a really great job. So this video is going to serve as my thoughts on the final episode, as well as just my kind of wrapped up thoughts on the series overall. I will be following up this video with a spoiler discussion live stream that I will have a couple of other YouTube guests on with me to do that. As I have done with the previous MCU show, so you guys can look forward to that. But as far as this episode, we pick up where we left last time, where we have Sylvie and Loki having enchanted Alioth, the big smoke creature, and after they did that, it kind of opened up like a portal in space and time where we saw some sort of building on the other end, and that's where the episode ended. In this one, we pick up right from there as they make their way over to that building and end up discovering that there is a man in there played by Jonathan Majors. Now, before we get into all of that, yeah, when they first get there, you have Miss Minutes kind of acting a little bit strange, very creepy-esque, and she keeps mentioning this one individual person. So I think, like a lot of us kind of expected, kind of leading up to what's happened with the TVA and learning that they, you know, aren't real when it comes to the Time Lords, yeah, I think it was pretty clear that we were going to get a Wizard of Oz type of reveal. And so when they're on their way into this building, after they get past Miss Minutes, an elevator door opens up, and like I mentioned, Jonathan Majors steps out. And for anybody who's been keeping up with any Marvel news, Jonathan Majors was actually cast as Kang the Conqueror for the upcoming Ant-Man and the Wasp film called Quantumania. And so seeing him right there, I think everybody was kind of probably having a moment of like, oh shit, Kang the Conqueror is in this episode right now. We're going to get that. And it seems like we did not fully get that. And the reason I say that is because they never say the character's name in this episode, but Jonathan Majors is playing some sort of, you know, special entity. He goes on to explain to Loki and Sylvie throughout the course of the episode, in a very dialogue-heavy episode, essentially just explaining about the multiverse. This show is easily going to be the main entryway into the multiverse when it comes to the MCU, and we kind of felt like we were starting to dip our toes into that with WandaVision. I know everybody was kind of thinking that with the whole Pietro reveal, but yeah, completely different, whereas in this case, we are actually opening up the multiverse. And the episode doesn't really end on like a final note. It kind of leaves things incredibly open-ended, especially for the character of Loki. And if you came into the show for, like, you know, a Loki show, I think that they didn't really wrap up Loki's story in this episode. I'm pretty torn on it. I literally just watched it, and this is just kind of my first initial kind of rambly thoughts. But yeah, after talking to Jonathan Majors' character, they learn about the multiverse, they learn about this multiversal war, and essentially he tells them, you have two options. You can either kill me and take over the TVA and deal with, you know, the timelines and keeping everything in order, or you can kill me and, you know, not take over and just let things go to shit, and it's just going to cause a bunch of branches in the timeline, and there's going to be tons of different versions of myself, including a lot of very dangerous versions of myself, to appear. That is where we definitely know that Kang the Conqueror is definitely going to be showing up, and very curious to see how they implement the ending of this show into what's going to happen in the next Ant-Man and the Wasp show, and just into the future of the MCU overall. The show ends essentially with Owen Wilson and Hunter B-15 not recognizing Loki at all when he is actually sent by Sylvie back to the TVA. And so Loki's pretty obviously surprised. He goes to tell Owen Wilson's character Mobius about, you know, what's going on, you know, what's just happened, what they just learned, and about the fact that now that Sylvie's killed this individual, that things are going to start going crazy, and that, you know, multiple versions of this one crazy individual are going to show up. And the episode ends with Loki looking at a statue of Jonathan Majors in the Kang the Conqueror outfit. So yeah, definitely a really crazy episode that definitely has a lot of huge implications for the future of the MCU. Very well acted again. You know, when there is action, it was fun to watch. And, you know, I think it definitely built up the story in a really great way with a lot of dialogue. Overall, I think this is one of my least favorite episodes in the series, and I think it's just because it was a kind of a little bit of a slower paced episode. And I'm okay with all the dialogue that we got and the expository kind of just vomiting that we got in this episode to kind of set things in motion moving forward. But I can't lie, I am kind of disappointed as a finale when it comes to this show. I don't really think it gave me that sense of finality that I wanted, while still leaving things open-ended for where the MCU would go. I almost feel like there's gonna be another episode. Like, I almost kind of have this feeling in me like everybody's just kind of wrong and that this isn't the final episode. I feel like we need one more episode, and if the show really did just end like this and we're moving into the rest of the movies and the rest of the TV shows just based on this knowledge, and we're going to catch up with Loki and Sylvie and Mobius and all of them in the next couple episodes, I gotta say, I'm fairly disappointed with the way that they chose to wrap up this show. I just think it left things way too open-ended when it comes to the main characters of this show. I don't think it necessarily gave these characters resolution overall. I just can't lie. And the last episode, the 5th one, was my favorite in the series. Every episode has slowly gotten better for me in pretty much every way. And so, you know, ramping up to this final episode, I was really hyped. And, you know, overall, I can probably say that this has been my favorite experience of the MCU shows thus far. I loved talking to the Winter Soldier, and I loved WandaVision. But yeah, Loki has been my favorite thus far. Some of these episodes have been some of my favorite MCU things in general, and I've just enjoyed the very big, over-the-top, wacky concepts of this show. I've really enjoyed Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and all the other people who are part of this show. And this episode was just so jam-packed with dialogue explaining the multiverse and kind of the dangers that are to come, that I don't think it did enough to really wrap up this season, you know? That's just how I feel. I'm pretty torn on my overall feelings on this final episode. I don't really think it did what I think it needs to do as a finale to an MCU show that, again, it can leave things open-ended, but also needs to give some level of finality to its characters and what's happened. So, yeah, ultimately, I'm a little torn on how I feel about the finale of the series. You know, as kind of my general thoughts on the show overall, I've loved it. I think I'll still call it my favorite of the MCU shows, but definitely didn't stick the landing in terms of a finale in the same way that WandaVision or that Falcon and the Winter Soldier did, where, again, those episodes had finality to their season and for their characters while also leaving things open-ended. So, yeah, if anybody knows anything, if I'm just in the wrong and that this is not exactly the finale, I hope I can make another video for another episode and say, like, hey, last week's episode I thought it was the finale and it wasn't actually the finale. But based on everything I've seen online, I went on Twitter really quickly just to look at what people were saying, and it seems like it's the finale, and it seems like there's definitely some mixed opinions. I didn't want to read too much into it because I kind of wanted to get my general thoughts out, you know, just real. But yeah, that's going to be my thoughts on this episode and this series overall. I've had a lot of fun with it, as you guys have seen over the course of the weeks. Thank you to all of you guys who watched weekly with me and were commenting and definitely helping the channel out by supporting those videos. Definitely means a lot. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys have been enjoying these videos, please hit that like button, comment your thoughts about this episode. What do you think that this is kind of going to imply for the rest of the MCU? Are you guys looking forward to seeing Kang the Conqueror and being able to see Jonathan Majors come back to play that character as time goes on? Definitely very curious to see how this all connects to Ant-Man and the Wasp. And ultimately, I really kind of hope that we get one more episode. I feel like this series needs at least one more. I feel like it just left things in such a really crazy place to just kind of have to play off of in future MCU projects. I think kind of undercuts the events that took place in this show. I am incredibly torn. I'm incredibly torn. I can't lie, and I wish I was far more excited about the way this ended. I'm excited about the implications on the MCU, but in terms of the show itself, I think it could have been a stronger ending. I can't lie. So thank you guys so much for watching. Genuinely appreciate it. Again, hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and I'm very curious to see how the internet reacts to all of this and where the MCU goes moving forward. I trust Kevin Feige and all the creatives behind MCU, so I will just sit back and wait to see what happens. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.